The crystal tray nearly slipped from Amelia's hands. There, in a golden frame tucked behind velvet ropes in the private wing of the Whitmore estate, was a photo no one else could have recognized, but she did. A little girl with wild curls, a crooked smile, and a cotton candy pink dress. Her, Amelia Whitmore. Or at least, that's who she used to be. Her breath caught in her throat as she stared at the image. The hallway smelled of money, polished marble, imported lilacs, waxed walnut floors, but all Amelia could feel was the cold pulse of panic rising in her chest. That photo didn't belong here. It belonged in the past, a past she'd never been allowed to remember. She took a shaky step forward, blinking hard, hoping the image would vanish. It didn't. The photo was real, and so was the silver inscription etched into the frame. To the best dad in the world. Love, Amelia. A sharp voice cut through the silence. Hey, you're not supposed to be here. She turned. A guard in a black blazer was striding toward her, hand already on his radio. I got lost. I was looking for the restroom. Her voice was steady, but her heart hammered like a snare drum. He waved her back toward the main hall without waiting for an explanation. Back among the glittering chandeliers and champagne flutes, Amelia scanned the room, and there he was. William Whitmore in a tuxedo that probably cost more than her rent, smiling as he accepted an award for his work with orphan children. The same man who, 30 minutes ago, walked past her as if she didn't exist. The same man who now stood beneath a banner that read, "A Legacy of Love, the Whitmore Foundation Gala." She hadn't expected to find her face in this mansion, but now that she had, she was going to find the rest of the truth, and no matter what it cost. The music in the ballroom faded into a soft hum behind Amelia, but her thoughts were louder than ever. She had seen that photo before, not in person, but in her dreams. The edges of that memory had always been blurred by the vague explanations social workers fed her growing up. A fire. No surviving family. Records lost. She had accepted those fragments as her truth. Until now. Now, her truth was framed in gold and hanging in the private wing of a billionaire's estate. Every step she took across the marble floors felt heavier. The uniform clung to her like a costume she could no longer pretend in. Amelia had worked events at country clubs, art galas, private auctions, but nothing had ever hit her like this. Why was her childhood photo displayed in William Whitmore's home? Why did it say "to the best dad"? Why did the man who walked past her without a second glance, as if she were invisible, have a piece of her history buried in his private quarters? Across the room, William raised a crystal flute and smiled for the cameras. Applause followed every word he delivered about underprivileged children, fatherhood, and turning personal tragedy into purpose. Her stomach twisted. Tragedy? What? Tragedy? She was not dead. She was not lost. She had been placed into a system that forgot her. Moved from foster family to foster family. Never told the full story. Never chosen. Never loved for long enough to believe she was wanted. Her eyes locked onto William's face. His voice was smooth, his charm rehearsed. As someone who has known the pain of losing a child, he said solemnly, I believe no child should suffer without a home. The room erupted in sympathetic applause. Amelia did not clap. She studied his face, and for the first time, she noticed something beneath the polish, a flicker, a crack, something that felt more like guilt than grief. A slight tremble in his voice when he said, daughter, not sorrow, but strained that he was hiding something. She had grown up building walls to survive. But tonight, for the first time, something else was building. Not defense, but determination. She needed to know. Who took that photo? Why was it here? What really happened to her mother? And why had she been raised as if her life was an inconvenient footnote no one wanted to revisit? A tray of empty glasses trembled in her hands as she stepped into the staff kitchen. She set them down slowly, careful not to drop one. James, the older bartender she had worked with before, glanced up from polishing glassware. You look like you have seen a ghost, he said gently. Amelia leaned in and whispered, do you know anything about William Whitmore's family? About a daughter he lost? James stopped. His hand froze mid-polish. There was something in his eyes, recognition and fear. Why do you ask? He said quietly. I just need to know. James hesitated, then glanced toward the door to make sure no one was listening. People do not talk about it. But there were rumors. Something about a little girl who vanished after his wife died. Whole thing was covered up fast. Amelia's pulse quickened. She was not just chasing memories now. She was chasing a secret someone had tried to bury, and she was ready to dig it up. James leaned in, lowered his voice, and scanned the hallway to make sure they were alone. "You are not the first person to ask about William Whitmore's past," he said. But everyone else who tried to dig too deep backed off. Amelia met his eyes. "I am not backing off." That night, after the gala ended and the last glass was rinsed, she found James outside loading boxes into his truck. He gave her a folder, thin, weathered, and clearly old. "Start here," he said. "I do not know what is true and what is gossip. But if anyone can help you find real answers, it is Charlotte." "Charlotte who?" "Charlotte Monroe. Retired. Hi. She used to work some of these fancy events, watching the guests, not the waitstaff. These people think their secrets are safe behind tinted windows." Charlotte saw through every one of them. By morning, Amelia had tracked her down. Charlotte Monroe was now 65, sharp-eyed, and drinking espresso at a quiet cafe like she on the corner of the world. Amelia approached her table with a hesitant smile and a to-go cappuccino. "You always took it extra strong," Amelia said, "with cinnamon on top." Charlotte looked up and for a long moment said nothing. Then she slid her sunglasses down her nose. "You are not just a waitress, are you? I need your help. I think my name was erased 20 years ago, and I think William Whitmore did it." Charlotte studied her face for a moment longer. Then, she took the coffee and motioned for Amelia to sit. "Tell me everything." What followed was a week of quiet meetings, coded texts, and late-night research sessions. Charlotte worked like a surgeon, precise and relentless. Amelia followed her lead, learning how to trace phone records, retrieve public files, and read between legal lines. They started with Emma Whitmore, Amelia's mother. According to official reports, Emma died in a car crash when Amelia was 4. But Charlotte found inconsistencies buried in the hospital logs. Emma had survived the initial accident. She was admitted conscious and pronounced dead 2 hours later. Then came the coroner's report. Charlotte spread it across the table. "Look here," she said, tapping a toxicology screen. "She was not killed by the impact. There were signs of poisoning, deliberate, delayed." The pieces locked into place faster than Amelia could breathe. "What about me?" she asked. Charlotte reached for another file. "Your name shows up on a fake death certificate, signed the same day Emma died." There it was. Her name, Amelia Whitmore, listed as deceased. Body never recovered. Cause, presumed fatal trauma. And underneath, the signature of the attending physician, someone later linked to a Whitmore-funded hospital expansion. "He declared you dead," Charlotte said, her voice flat. "You were very much alive. But on paper, you were gone." Amelia's hands shook as she flipped through more documents. There was a $500,000 life insurance payout in William's name and a sealed court document declaring his daughter's death a personal tragedy, and news articles announcing the birth of the Whitmore Foundation, a nonprofit to honor the wife and daughter he lost in a devastating accident. All built on a lie. Amelia stared at the timeline Charlotte had created, each step carefully dated. Emma's investigation into illegal adoption agencies, her car crash, the fake death certificates, the foundation launch, and one final, devastating headline. Investigator linked to adoption probe missing after car explosion. Emma had hired a PI of her own, Charlotte said quietly, to expose corruption inside the private adoption system. That investigator vanished 2 weeks before she did. Silence settled in the room like fog. "He did not just erase you," Charlotte added. "He erased your mother, her work, her voice, and used it to crown himself a hero." Amelia closed the folder and looked up. "He made millions pretending to grieve for us. And now?" Charlotte asked. "Now," Amelia said, "I make sure everyone knows we were never lost." The folder was heavier than it looked. Inside it were documents no one was ever meant to see. Files that told a story far more sinister than Amelia had imagined. Not just abandonment, not just lies, but something darker, something deadly. Charlotte set down a thin medical report and tapped her finger against the final page. "Read." "The nurse's statement," she said quietly. Amelia leaned in. Her eyes scanned the faded handwriting. It described Emma's last moments in the hospital. She had survived the crash. She was conscious for almost 2 hours. And just before her heart gave out, she had whispered something to the night nurse. Please, protect her from the monster. Amelia's breath caught. She did not need to ask who the monster was. Charlotte looked up. Emma knew she was dying. She knew someone was coming for you. Amelia stared at the paper. It trembled in her hands. For years, she had lived with the ache of not knowing. Why was she abandoned? Why did no one come for her? But now she saw the truth. Someone had tried. Her mother had fought until the very end. And someone had made sure that fight ended quietly. It was not just a car crash. It was a setup. He did this, Amelia whispered. William. He wanted her. Gone. Charlotte nodded slowly. He needed to get her out of the way. Emma was close to exposing something. Illegal adoptions, missing children, corrupt agencies. Her investigation was gaining attention. Then, suddenly, she is dead. And you vanish without a trace. The truth clicked into place like a lock snapping shut. Amelia was not just forgotten. She was erased, and William Whitmore profited from all of it. There is more, Charlotte said, reaching for a second envelope. Inside were bank records. A $500,000 life insurance payout after Emma's death. Another policy in Amelia's name, cashed out the same week she was declared dead. Documents. Signatures. Stamped approvals. All carefully orchestrated. He built a legacy on your graves, Charlotte said, voice heavy. Amelia stood and walked to the window. The sky was soft and gold with the first signs of sunset, but everything in her world had turned cold. He faked my death. Told the world we were gone, and no one ever questioned it. Because he had power, influence, connections. He married, young, kept his public image clean, ran a charity in your names. Amelia let out a breath that sounded more like a growl. And the whole time, he knew I was alive. He knew where I ended up. He just did not care. No, Charlotte said. He made sure you could never come back. Amelia turned around slowly. But I did come back. Charlotte gave a half smile. And you are not a scared child anymore. Amelia picked up the nurse's note again. Those final words echoed in her chest. Protect her from the monster. She would, but not with fear, with truth. She looked down at the pile of papers, death certificates, insurance forms, forged signatures, a mother's dying plea. And she saw them not as proof of what had been taken, but as weapons. He thinks I am buried, Amelia said, voice low but steady. But ghosts do not stay buried forever. The Whitmore Foundation Gala was the crown jewel of the city's social calendar, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing near the fountain, and waitstaff gliding silently between Chicago's wealthiest donors. William stood on stage beneath a glowing banner that read, "A future for every child." He wore a midnight blue tuxedo, a silver ribbon of remembrance pinned to his chest. As many of you know, he said into the microphone, this foundation was born from pain. The loss of my beloved wife and daughter shaped everything I do today. The crowd fell silent. Cameras rolled. Glasses clinked in sympathy. From the back of the ballroom, Amelia moved quietly between guests with a tray of champagne and a steady hand. But under her uniform, her heart was pounding like a war drum. She had been planning this moment for weeks. The documents, the files, the photo, all backed up and waiting. And Charlotte? Already in position by the tech booth, ready to broadcast the moment across every local outlet. Amelia stepped closer to the stage, weaving past investors and influencers. Her eyes never left William. He was basking in applause now, preaching about hope and redemption. She reached the front of the room just as he paused to sip his water. That was her cue. She stepped onto the stage, not rushed, not nervous, just calm, controlled. "Excuse me, Mr. Whitmore," she said, taking the mic from a startled assistant. "May I ask you a question?" The room turned. William froze. "Miss," he said with forced politeness, "this is not part of the— Do you believe every child deserves a future?" she asked. "Of course. What about your own daughter?" The air shifted, gasps. Silence. Eyes darting between them. William blinked, confused. "I am not sure I understand. Let me help you," Amelia said, turning to the large projection screen behind them. "This was found in your private office." The photo appeared at a 4-year-old girl with wild curls and a pink dress. Her smile soft, her eyes unmistakable, scrawled on the back of the photo, "To the best dad in the world, love, Amelia." People stared. The resemblance was undeniable. "That little girl is me," she said. "The daughter you claimed died in an accident." William's face drained of color. Before he could speak, Charlotte pressed a button. The next slide flashed onto the screen. Emma Whitmore's autopsy report, showing she had survived the car crash, but was poisoned 2 hours later in the hospital. Then came the forged death certificates, the life insurance payout forms, the hospital logs, every piece of the lie. Amelia held the mic tighter. "You told the world we were dead. You built your empire on that story. You faked our deaths. You silenced my mother. You buried me." William stepped forward, desperate. "This is a setup, is it?" Amelia cut in. "Because the press has already received every file, including the recording of you telling your lawyer you solved the Emma problem." Reporters erupted. Phones came out. Flashes blinded the room. Charlotte's live stream ticked past 10,000 viewers. Then 20,000. William backed away from the mic, shaking his head. "This is madness. You wanted the world to pity you," Amelia said, stepping closer. "You wanted sympathy, but you are not a grieving father. You are a thief, a liar, and possibly a murderer." Sirens screamed in the distance. .2 officers entered the room, badges out, cutting through the crowd. William looked around, frantic. "You planned this?" Amelia nodded. "Of course I did. You taught me how. Revenge, you once said, is best served cold." The handcuffs clicked shut. As William was led away, cameras chased after him, shouting questions. Guests whispered. Some left in silence. Others filmed, stunned. ***, but Amelia just stood on the stage, still holding the microphone. She looked out over the people who had once admired him and whispered just loud enough for the room to hear. 20 years is a long time to cool. 6 months later, the plaque on the office door had changed. Emma Whitmore Foundation, Executive Director, Amelia Grace Whitmore. The name once buried beneath lies was now carved in gold leaf, not as a whisper from the past, but a promise to the future. Inside, Amelia signed a grant approval form for the 6th new orphanage, this one opening in Milwaukee, where the waiting list of displaced children had tripled in the last decade. What used to be a front for stolen money now delivered clean beds, school books, and protection. ***, real children. Real futures. Across the desk, Charlotte flipped through budget reports. "Irony has a beautiful rhythm, doesn't it?" she said with a dry smile. "He raised millions off your mother's death, and now you're using those millions to finish her mission." Amelia did not look up. "We are just getting started." The foundation's walls were now lined with photos of Emma, not stage portraits, but black and white snapshots of her protests, her community outreach, the quiet heroism that once made her dangerous. In one photo, she held a sign that read, "Every child is someone's world." That belief had nearly cost her everything. Now, it was changing everything. The press called Amelia the girl who came back from the dead, and for once, the headlines were not exaggerated. Time magazine placed her on their 30 Under 30 cover. She spoke before Congress on adoption reform, and CNN aired a full documentary titled "The Daughter He Buried and the Legacy She Built." But for Amelia, the true reward came in letters. Stacks of handwritten notes arrived every month, from children who had been saved by the foundation, from foster parents whose lives had changed, from teens who finally believed they mattered. "Dear Amelia, I got accepted into Yale because of the scholarship. Thank you for seeing me. Miss Whitmore, I want to become a lawyer like you, so I can protect children too. You don't know me, but I was in the Milwaukee shelter. My mom got custody of me again last week. Thank you for making that possible." Amelia read every single one, sometimes twice. She never forgot what it felt like to grow up thinking you were invisible, thinking you had no name, no past, no future. Now, she made sure no child ever had to feel that again. James, the former bartender, had become the foundation's event director. Marcus oversaw youth mentorship programs. Even Sarah, her newly discovered aunt, managed a small publishing project to collect and release Emma's old journals and investigative notes. "People should know what she gave her life for," Sarah had said, wiping tears as she boxed the first set of printed manuscripts. The world finally knew the truth. And William Whitmore? He remained in a federal prison, serving 25 years for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to commit murder. His wealth was frozen, his honor stripped, his name removed from every building he once donated to. Even the private golf club renamed the Whitmore Classic. But the justice system was only part of the reckoning. The real justice was watching a daughter rebuild the future he tried to destroy, using his stolen fortune, his broken empire, and his own last name. Because Amelia did not just rise from the ashes, she turned them into shelter. And for hundreds of children who once had nothing, her new legacy had become the safest place they had ever known, the sky over. Chicago was soft pink, brushed with the gold of an early evening sun. Amelia knelt quietly before the new headstone. The pink marble glowed in the light, smooth and warm to the touch, a stark contrast to the simple plaque that used to sit there, forgotten and nameless. It now read, Emma Whitmore, mother, activist, heroine. She fought for those without a voice. Her daughter finished the mission. Amelia placed a bouquet of white roses at the base. She ran her fingers along the letters, each one carved with care, the truth finally etched into stone where silence once lived. She closed her eyes and whispered, "We did it, Mom." Not with rage, not with revenge, but with justice. With purpose, she stayed for a while, letting the quiet wrap around her like an old blanket. Somewhere nearby, wind rustled the grass. A robin landed on the stone and then fluttered away. Peace was no longer a fantasy. It was real, earned. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She checked it without rising. A notification from the foundation's board. Historic milestone. We just raised more this week than William donated in his entire lifetime. Amelia smiled, a small, grounded smile. There were no cameras now. No headlines. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing the truth had taken root and was growing into something Emma would be proud of. Later that night, she stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of her new apartment, a cup of tea in her hand. The city shimmered below her. Lights blinked like stars. Somewhere out there, 200 children were sleeping in warm beds because of her. 50 more had been adopted that week alone. Her phone rang again. It was Sarah. "How was your day, love?" her aunt asked, the same way she always did. "Transformative," Amelia answered. They talked about the manuscript, about Emma's upcoming biography, about another orphanage they were opening in New Orleans. But when the call ended, Amelia just stood there, taking it all in, the journey, the pain, the betrayal, the truth, the rise. She thought about the man who tried to erase her, and how, without even realizing it, he had handed her the blank page she needed to rewrite everything. Not just her story, but thousands of others, too. Because the best revenge was not watching him fall. It was becoming everything he pretended to be, multiplied by 1,000. And as Amelia looked out over the city, her city, she knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The beginning of a legacy no lie could bury.